We want a considerable portion of our portfolio to be taken up in the private sector, and we want to do a lot of cross-institutional financing. We have a mandate and a priority in our set of objectives to do more local currency financing, do away with the exchange rate risk.
How do you deal and see, all these around-the-clock changes among your founding members about the future directions of their economy and investment environment?
One of the ways to interpret the effects of COVID in the world, Tian Wei, and that I favor the most, is that the world actually pushed the pause button. But going forward, as vaccination is rolled out, as economic normality somewhat resumes, then the flows of FDI will continue to increase. And I think many of our member countries are mindful of this very important paradox that you see in the world out there, because as a result of more uncertainty, as a result of people living longer, as a result of the demassification of the economy, you have a huge amount of savings of resources that are looking for good investment opportunities. On the other hand, you have less projects, less interesting ideas that are able to absorb those kind of savings and investment in the form of economic activity. So I think as, once again, situation goes back to something that's closer to normality, there's going to be more and more creative instruments to attract that liquidity, some of them in the form of new stock exchanges, some of them put together by institutions like ourselves because we want to mobilize more private capital to be able to direct those resources to our member countries. I see it as a natural consequence of the world that is progressively going to resume normality, and therefore the overall flows of investment will also expand.
Do we line it up already in front of the private sector?
We have already a number of projects that are done in partnership with the private sector. We have those in Russia, we have those in Brazil. We wanted to have in all of our member countries. We want a considerable portion of our portfolio to be taken up by projects in the private sector, and we want to do a lot of cross-institutional financing. One particular project where you have a multilateral institution like us, another multilateral institution, an investment fund that's led by private investors, we can now come together. Now, during my term, we have set up the non-sovereign department here in our vice presidency for operations. So people who are exclusively directed to private sector operations, along with the new department for ESG. So we are very mindful of these, say, preferences on the part of investors to have very strong criteria for environment, social, and governance. So we're also making the institution more sophisticated to be able to play a constructive role in whichever projects we do with the private sector.
Tell me more about your choices and preferences of currencies.
I think our role here is to allow for a bigger basket of choices that are available for whoever does business with us. We have a mandate and a priority in our set of objectives to do more local currency financing, do away with the exchange rate risk. We do so, once again, in a very progressive manner as global interest rates also move towards some sort of normality. This should be a bigger option.